Happy Sunday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where we discuss leading political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's number 2 economy. My name is Tony. We normally take Sundays off, but there is just so much to cover. We need to put out this extra Sunday episode so we're on top of everything as we move into what will likely be an incredibly eventful week. So with that said, let's jump in. When European Union leaders arrive in Beijing next month for their long-delayed summit with China, one issue will dominate the agenda: rare earths. According to UK-based Reuters, the EU's mission priority is securing access to these critical minerals, which are essential to modern technologies from electric vehicles to advanced weaponry, and are overwhelmingly controlled by China. 4 EU sources confirmed to Reuters that this issue has become paramount in recent weeks, overshadowing all other trade-related concerns. This is a space that we've been following very closely here on China Update. Now, Beijing's stranglehold on rare earths is no accident. It is the result of a long-term state-driven strategy that has resulted in an export control regime wielded with precision. The system is designed to allow China to punish any country that cooperates with the United States on tariffs, export controls, or broader strategic measures. The EU, now caught between the US and China, faces a dilemma: how to remain aligned with Washington while still ensuring access to critical Chinese exports. Of course, there are 2 obvious weak points to this strategy from China. One, it risks making it much easier for major players to choose alignment with Washington over China, essentially being pushed into it. And 2, unlike, say, semiconductor restrictions, rare earths can be mined and processed all around the world, meaning that the stranglehold can only exist in the short to medium term, 12 to 18 months perhaps. Currently, however, this is very painful for many countries involved, with entire industries being pushed to the brink of shutdown. China mines around 2/3 of the world's rare earth elements and processes roughly 90% of global supply. In April, Beijing imposed license requirements on exports of key rare earth products. These included components vital for electric motors, wind turbines, and military appliances. The impact was immediate. Incredibly, according to calculations of official data by the Wall Street Journal published on Friday, exports of rare earth magnets from China fell 74% year-on-year in May, with exports to the United States plummeting 93%. This was obviously a calculated move from China. Despite Beijing's claim that it has set up a green channel to expedite license approvals for EU companies, the process remains slow and opaque. As Adam Dennett of the European Chamber of Commerce in China noted, fewer than half of these submitted applications have been processed, and many still face customs delays even after receiving licenses. Beijing's leverage is particularly acute because Europe is simultaneously negotiating a trade coordination pact with the US, which may involve aligning policies on China. One EU official told US-based Politico that the bloc's hands are tied, as, quote, China is waiting until the last minute to make any concessions, end quote, aware that rare earths are Europe's critical vulnerability. Another official remarked that China is, quote, playing its cards very well, end quote. And this leverage has already been demonstrated. China's export curbs on another critical mineral, antimony, used in batteries and military equipment, have caused procurement costs to skyrocket. Quote, we consider it a national emergency, end quote, said Steve Christensen of the US-based Responsible Battery Coalition in a UK-based Financial Times interview. Spot prices for antimony have surged to over $60,000 per metric ton, more than quadrupling over the past year. Europe's reliance on China for rare earths is not just economic, it is strategic. While the EU talks about de-risking its supply chains, it has not developed the necessary industrial capacity to process or refine those minerals independently. Commentators would be right to criticize Europe, the US, Japan, and others for putting themselves in this vulnerable position, however. Analysts have warned for years that China dominated these critical supply chains that, with time and money, can be built elsewhere. Indeed, on China Update, this channel, we discussed this concern as early as 2019. The West, as David Abraham, who runs the Technology, Rare and Electronics Materials Center, observed on the Volt Rush podcast this week, has long been outmaneuvered by China's state-led industrial strategy. Despite early warnings in books like The Elements of Power, published in 2017, Abraham argues that policymakers in the US, the EU, Japan, and others failed to act decisively. Even Japan, despite suffering its own rare earth shock in 2010, has maintained its dependence on Chinese suppliers. As Europe prepares for its July summit in Beijing, something we'll be following very closely when it happens, it faces difficult decisions. Once again, the continent has found that it has become dependent on a rival power for commodities critical to its economic system. Beijing will likely continue wielding this leverage while it lasts. Next up, we have 3 more important updates to cover, but just quickly, if you're getting some value from today's episode of China Update, don't forget to hit the like button, and if you want to continue to be on top of the most up-to-date analysis on this country and the emerging Cold War between it and the US-led West, make sure you're subscribed to China Update, hit the bell notification icon, and you will be. And if you'd like to help keep China Update financially sustainable, this channel relies primarily on the audience's support. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are in the description below. Next up, as New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon hails a successful trade and academic engagement visit to China this week, tensions have flared on multiple fronts back home over China's deepening ties in the Pacific and military assertiveness in the region. The New Zealand government has suspended 18.2 million New Zealand dollars, $11 million US, in development assistance to the Cook Islands due to growing unease over the island nation's evolving relationship with Beijing. The funding freeze, announced by Foreign Minister Winston Peters, came after the Cook Islands signed a comprehensive strategic partnership with China in February of this year. We covered it at the time, encompassing trade, tourism, and renewable energy cooperation. Peters stated that New Zealand had not received satisfactory answers from the Cook Islands government about the agreement and emphasized the expectation that Pacific partners consult Wellington before entering agreements that could affect bilateral relations. This is a constitutional requirement of the Cook Islands as part of the realm of New Zealand, a collection of states and territories united under the monarch. The suspended funds were earmarked for core sectors such as health, education, and tourism. Over the past 3 years, New Zealand has provided 200 million New Zealand dollars in aid to the Cook Islands under a decades-long arrangement that includes close political coordination. Despite the domestic controversy, Luxon's trip to China projected a different tone. While visiting Shanghai, he highlighted the importance of the two countries' 39 billion New Zealand dollar trade relationship, which accounts for over 20% of New Zealand's total goods and services exports. He also visited Fudan University to promote bilateral academic ties and joint research projects. Unlike much of the world, New Zealand is one of the few countries that actually enjoys a trade surplus with China, China having a trade deficit with New Zealand. However, this balancing act is being tested by rising geopolitical tensions. AFP revealed this week that New Zealand was deeply alarmed by China's test of a nuclear-capable intercontinental ballistic missile, ICBM, over the Pacific in September of last year. According to classified government briefings, the launch, China's first over international waters in 4 decades, was viewed by Wellington as a provocative demonstration of Beijing's nuclear capabilities, despite China's insistence that the test was routine. China has rejected criticism of its ties with the Cook Islands, with Foreign Ministry spokesperson Guo Jiakun reiterating that the partnership is based on, quote, mutual respect and common development, end quote, and does not target third parties. The episode demonstrates the diplomatic tightrope New Zealand must walk, fostering beneficial relations with its largest trading partner while responding to strategic and security concerns closer to home. Next up, China is reviving its push to build a NASDAQ-style market for innovative companies by reopening its STAR market to unprofitable technology firms, in a move aimed to strengthen the country's high-tech sector and improve access to capital for startups. Speaking at the 2025 Lu Jiazui Forum in Shanghai, Wu Qing, chairman of the China Securities Regulatory Commission, announced a slate of reforms, including the reinstallment of the STAR market's 5th listing standard, specifically designed for loss-making firms with strong growth potential. The 5th standard allows firms with an estimated market capitalization of less than 4 billion yuan, $556 million US, to list, even if they are not yet profitable. To qualify, companies must demonstrate market potential and regulatory approval for key products. For biotech firms, that includes a list of 1 product in Phase 2 clinical trials. The STAR market reforms are part of a broader attempt by Beijing to open new exit paths for early-stage investors and reinforce capital market support for innovation. This comes as China's biotech and pharmaceutical sectors face tighter IPO scrutiny, shrinking investment, and increasing competition. Many firms have sought to list in Hong Kong instead. And finally for today, this is somewhat of a foreign policy focused episode. This week, General Secretary Xi Jinping took part in a high-profile visit to Kazakhstan for the second China Central Asia Summit, a two-day event that took place simultaneously with the G7 leaders gathering in Canada. Xi's attendance, his third overseas trip this year and sixth visit to Kazakhstan since assuming office, underscores Beijing's deepening focus on Central Asia as a cornerstone of its neighbourhood diplomacy and regional influence campaigns. There may be some in the audience that are thinking, wait, I thought Xi Jinping was in trouble. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of propaganda in recent weeks saying that he has been detained or is about to be replaced. As we discussed last week, and as these recent events have shown, these reports appear to be false. Xi's power, for now at least, still appears to be very strong. We should also note that next month in July there is a period of about 2 weeks when China's leadership basically goes on a working vacation to the coast, and many of them are not seen during this time. Every year during this period there are often a lot of rumours that Xi or other major players have been detained or have fallen out of power because they have not been seen in public for a couple of weeks. Every year I say on this channel that they are on holiday and so they're not in the public eye. So expect to see a jump in rumours that Xi is in trouble in the next month or so. But just keep in mind that this holiday period is coming up, and so this is likely why you haven't seen some of these leaders. Of course, if there is convincing evidence that something has happened, then we'll cover it on China Update. Let's continue. In his keynote speech, Xi pledged 1.5 billion yuan, $209 million US dollars, in grants to support regional development and livelihood projects, and announced 3,000 training opportunities over the next 2 years. Quote, China is ready to work with Central Asia to build a community with a shared future, end quote, he stated. The summit also carried geopolitical overtones. Xi's presence in Kazakhstan during the G7 summit sent a clear signal of China's alternative diplomatic model, one centered on infrastructure, mutual non-alignment, and economic development rather than the Western-led liberal order. Just days prior, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio had met Kazakhstan's foreign minister in Washington, highlighting the region's renewed strategic importance to both great powers. And frankly, a tired and overstretched Moscow is likely keeping a wary eye on China's moves in this traditionally Russian backyard region too. Sun Weidong, head of the China Central Asia Mechanism, emphasized in State-Run People's Daily this week that the summit aimed to, quote, stabilize global industrial and supply chains, end quote, and promote an open trade environment. This aligns with trade data from China's General Administration of Customs, which reported a record $40 billion US dollars in trade between China and Central Asia from January to May 2025, up 10.4% year-on-year. China's exports to Central Asia consist mainly of machinery, electronics and vehicles, while imports include oil, gas, copper and agricultural products. The rapid trade growth, doubling since 2013, reflects not only economic interdependence, but also political alignment fostered through summits like this. The summit marks a significant moment in China's strategy to solidify its western flank, as its eastern flank, its eastern seaboard, with Japan, Taiwan and the South China Sea, increasingly becomes one of the most dangerous flashpoints in the world. Okay, that is today's extra Sunday episode of China Update. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. I hope you've had a restful weekend. There's a lot of disquieting news these days, and it's difficult to have a very restful weekend, but I hope you can have it. It's probably going to be a very eventful and busy week next week. We'll be following the major developments that are China-related here on China Update, as well as the wider geopolitical and market updates on my other channel, Market Update. Have a good Sunday, have a restful Sunday. I wish you a productive week ahead, and I will see you for this new week of updates tomorrow.